I would like to welcome very much the distinguished speakers of the emerging issues, and I would like to start with Antje Klaus-Vorreiter, who is one of a very engaged entrepreneur, has worked in Germany but also in South Africa on PV projects and many activities more. So welcome very much, Antje Klaus-Vorreiter, please. And then we have also, as a second speaker, we have Ariel Ben-Hur. And I have to say, Ariel was speaking this morning already during the press conference. And it is really striking. I mean, the work you are doing at the UNITAR, she is the inclusivity lead of the Global Platform for Action, GPA, on sustainable energy in displacement settings. I hope, I mean, this was really like a very impressive speech you gave today. So thank you very much for being on this panel as well. So. As the next speaker, we will have also Antje Spannhaus from the financing sector. So you heard her already. It's also a very impressive CV she has, working on many financing projects in Germany, but also internationally. Thank you very much, Anja Spannhaus, for joining us today. And Patricia Messa-Rosenblum, she is from Brazil. And she's also one of the engineers working on climate change, working on projects in the Brazilian energy planning with different sectoral models on energy efficiency. So welcome very much also Patricia Messa-Rosenblum. And finally, and it was really also touching yesterday, we had already the first discussion, Marina Ilczuk. She is a counselor at CMS law firm, and she is also one of the co-founders of the Women's Energy Club of Ukraine. Welcome very much, Marina. So let me start today on the questions of urgent energy issues, and I would like to start maybe with Antje. Maybe you can tell us a little bit where you see really the urgency. I understand you work a lot on training and education, which is also, I think, one of the topics everybody here sees as one of the urgent issues. Thank you, Antje.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, we already had a little chat between the panelists just now, and yeah, that's my topic, training. So we started with our company, Green Solar Academy. I had the company together with Vivian Plume, which is also a woman. And so we started to work in South Africa 10 years ago. And so that was a bit crazy to go to South Africa and to try to earn money with offering PV trainings, so solar trainings, because the market was not there. But, however, we had the support from the German government so that we could bring our trainings to South Africa, and we slowly started to train. So actually, we are celebrating now 12 years, and we started with 50 participants or 50 trained solar installers 10 years ago. And last year, despite having 3 months of lockdown, we were able to train 800 new installers in South Africa. And I mean, this is my point. So we have to start. So we have to have a look when we think about training. So we have to look where's the market, where's the potential for the people to work. And now I said that we live from training of PV installers. We are a company, so they have to pay to come to our trainings. And it's professional training. It's on a very high level. And where we now see the market is there. A lot of PV companies desperate look for skilled labor, but it's not there. And I mean, how can we implement energy transition when we do not have skilled labor? That's my point.
Antje, I think I would like to do a little exercise. Everybody is tired now from the lunch, so I would like those ones to stand up who thinks training is not an important issue in your country representing. So please, ladies, stand up if you think this is a non-issue and you don't need it. So I think it's...
That's not a breakup.
So it's maybe I should have asked the other way around. No, but I really think it's important, and I would like to come later on also to the point What is missing? Why are so little women and girls attractive to become actually electric engineers to install PV panels? But we do that in the second round, maybe. Ariel, I mean, your focus is definitely on cooking, on the basic needs of women, on electrification for healthcare, for livelihood. So would you like to tell us where you see the emergent needs?
Yes, absolutely. Just for context, to explain, we work mostly, predominantly in displacement settings. And this means that we work with refugee, internally displaced, migrant communities, as well as asylum seekers and their hosts. So this is really beyond the scope of only discussing refugee involvement. So this morning, we spoke a little bit about the role of women within these contexts and what energy access means for them. And yes, the topic of cooking is absolutely at the forefront of this. So currently, with new numbers we've just run, 81% of displaced people within camp settings rely on firewood and charcoal for cooking. And this means that the implications of such approaches are really, really, really large. In terms of respiratory health, in terms of the physical and emotional labor that is then subsequent to this, in terms of harvesting firewood, which can take up to 15 hours per week per household, the deforestation that this then leads to, and very often these roles are taken on by women and girls. So from the foraging of the wood, to the establishment of the fires, to tending to the fires, cooking, and we really see that this has a large impact on girls. And in terms of the time that's allocated to this as well, it means that activities such as focusing on schooling, livelihood activities, capacity building, these all take a back burner position. No pun intended. And with that, it's really, really crucial that we discuss the role of cooking and of energy access within these contexts.
I would like to ask you one question, maybe also connected to Antje. I mean, when you do PV installations in the refugee camps, do you also look at women doing these installations, or are you just happy that there is light for the camps?
So actually, I would say that the entrepreneurship piece of energy access is perhaps at the forefront of a lot of the efforts that are being undertaken at the moment. We strongly feel that autonomy, especially for the female population, is something that needs to be prioritized. And so very often, I would say installation of different projects or even initiating the projects to begin with is something that's really being pushed within the populations of women in these settings. And very happy to say that there's some wonderful projects out there, including solar home systems, the distribution and the creation of different clean and reliable energy technologies.
I would like to connect the two of you already, because I could think that you could work well together, because I know the problem also in some of the MENA countries. For example, when there's a solar home system breaking down, it's sometimes difficult even for the women to receive male engineers. So there is a loop which we can close here as well. But another really emerging task, Marina, we spoke yesterday already. I mean, Ukraine is in an awful war at the moment, and the energy infrastructure is under threat. So what is for you the emergent issue at the moment?
Thank you, Helen. Yes, it's correct. We've been discussing yesterday our challenges, and I'm happy that we are also discussing our future, like future of our energy strategy, but there is no future without present. And indeed, while all the world is mainly dealing with a spike of energy prices, Ukraine is tackling like the full-fledged interference and war in Ukraine on its territory, and including in particular with its energy infrastructure. So far, according to estimates of our Ministry of Energy, as of end of March 2022, the damages caused to the energy infrastructure are estimated at approximately $2 billion. So just it is even difficult to remember all the damages and destructions that Russia has caused to our energy infrastructure. So I have even prepared the slides. we talked to Serafina that it will be possible to download those slides from the website. Just to briefly to name what we are dealing with nowadays is basically our electricity consumption dropped in about 30% due to the war, and power generation by 40%. We have 7 CHP plants, cogeneration power plants, and hydropower plant damaged. Then mainly, and what is the most dangerous one, is damage to nuclear sector. As you may know, 55% of consumption in Ukraine is covered by nuclear power plants, and they have occupied Chernobyl power plant. Luckily, we have taken over control over the nuclear power plant. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is currently being occupied. We don't have access to it. We have taken over control to the storage for spent nuclear fuel. But as mentioned earlier, I'm myself based in Ukraine now. I came here only for the conference. I will come back to Ukraine. And I'm living in a small village next to another nuclear power plant, and we can see, and constantly we have air sirens because of attacks on possibly on other nuclear power plants, and also which is based next to the place where I'm staying. With regard to gas production, so it's just to understand that it's not only war of Ukraine. When we are talking about nuclear, I think all of us in this hall understand that everyone is in danger. With regard to gas production, Ukraine has been, as you may know, like in Ukraine, we have one of the biggest underground gas storages system in Europe, and Russia used to transit gas through territory of Ukraine before the construction of new pipelines, and Ukraine has been a secure partner in transiting gas until 11 May. We have complied with all our obligations, and on the 11th of May, Russia has occupied one more connector point, and we have declared force majeure because 1/3 of gas transit is going through this point, and this is also important to understand. With regard to gas production, also one of the underground storages has been shut down in the eastern Ukraine due to this occupation. Deliberately, Russia is destroying our and targeting oil bases. 15 oil bases were destroyed. And out of 2 fuel refineries, one was destroyed, one was shut down, we don't know for how long. Yeah, this is our reality nowadays, and this is just to understand when we are talking about the strategy, when we are talking about the challenges. These are our challenges. This is not easy, but I'm sure, like this, the war is also the transit of energy. This is somehow probably a huge impulse for us to act really fast, and we have to develop the very best energy strategy and to understand how to develop our sector, because I think we will have a debate further today and on this topic, because basically the challenges we used to have and how we saw our energy sector were mostly the same as, I'm sure, like in all the countries which are represented here. So we will definitely be there. But so far we also need to think about rehabilitation and remodernization of our sectors. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. I mean, we had this project on phasing out coal, and now we are supplying actually coal and oil and gas for Ukraine in this emergent situation. But I think there is this emergent situation, but there's also the future which you are thinking about. And as I said yesterday, I would encourage you to make this vision of Ukraine 100% renewable. Maybe not tomorrow, but this should be the ultimate target. But we come back to that maybe later. Antje Spannhaus, I mean, you are looking at from the financing side. You are the managing director of RECAP, the Global Investors AG. I mean, what would you see as the emerging topics? Why are so many projects, especially also in our partner countries, where there's goodwill but not really on the ground as they could be?
Yes, coming from the finance sector, we are based on real assets. So we are operating more than 100 wind and solar farms in 7 countries. And we have ambitious goals that we need to face the climate change. That is something that we need to face from a long-term perspective. And this comes all down to single projects. As you said as well, it's all then down to a single project. And these single projects are limited by long legislative procedures. We have ambitious goals, but we don't have the procedures to have them fast and really effectively, dynamically into force, and that's what we're facing. We're also facing technology questions. We have wind, we have solar, we have hydrogen, we have battery. What's the best? It's all of it. So we need to have a huge amount of money, and we have a huge amount of effort to have in all these technologies, combine them in a very clever way, and then to also question what needs to be done on a centralized way, on a decentralized way, because if you have a decentralized energy supply, you have this quarter supply projects and all that stuff, that's really good, but then you have to secure the energy supply, and we have the rising demand with the electrification of all our world, and then you have the centralized grid connection, then you need the interconnectors, you need the huge project that takes ages, 10, 20 years. This is nothing to come in short, but you need all together. And then we have something very smart that we have with the UN goals being enforced in the capital market with this Sustainable Fund Directive. They are within the financial market. They are putting money into the market, and this is not only because, oh, we want to have a bit of green and we want to be a bit of sustainable, but we need to prove that we are. And this gives a lot of money into the market, even now seeing raising interest rates and stuff like that, putting all the investors more or less back to other sectors. They're going to stick to that market because they need to do so. And we have the EU taxonomy, and that supports us as well on a single project base. And with these private and financial investors having a lot of stock in the market, being a big stakeholder here, there might be the overcome of all the restrictions and all the burdens we have to cope with them and to really get the power on the ground to have all these single projects we need to have the climate change, to face that really on an effective way.
I mean, we had this topic of education, and I really like that as well. Do you think there needs to be more women also educated in the question of financing questions, or is that sector already well?
No, we need much more women here. But we also need to make the finance sector more attractive. What we see a lot is that we have this very strong guys, being the finance guys, they are tough with the numbers, and we women are not because we can cook. No, that's not true, but the point is that we very often think that the finance is somehow like, oh, that's not very nice market, you know, they are all so stucky and they are, I don't know, and they sit in the evenings together and do their deals. That's the way we think about it, and Wirecard and stuff like that really makes it worse again. But we need the women to engage, to go into this market, to be financing specialists and run Excel files. And this is also for women a very attractive way, and it is something that we really like to work with. Me, myself, it's much more nice to say I'm working for refugees or for social aspects, but then being a hard financial specialist is sometimes like, okay, I'm just running numbers. That this is also something that you need, and this is something very being proud of, and this is also capable to be connected with family, and this is not something only for 12, 15 hours a day, and that this just changes, and it needs a lot of effort to change that, in mind and in the culture and even in the job profiles.
No, I think that's a very important perspective as well. So finally as well, please, sorry, Patricia? Patricia, right, sorry, Patricia. What is the emerging issues from your perspective coming from Brazil? You are not in an emerging situation, maybe like the African or the cooking situation. You are not in a war situation like the friends in Ukraine. But still, I mean, Brazil has also huge challenges. What are your emerging issues?
Yes, Thank you, and first, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm also a mentee at GWNet, so it's great to be here, and it's a really important project to empower female leaderships. Yes, Brazil have very specific issues, and when we talk about energy transition, we know that we must decarbonize the energy system and to preserve our forests. That's a global issue to tackle climate change. But the strategies to do that must consider the local opportunities and status and challenges. So there are some differences when we're talking about developing countries. And in Brazil specifically, we have already a very renewable power system. It's 85% renewable. It's very high compared to the rest of the world. And we have a continental country, very large, with a lot of natural resources. So we have an offshore wind potential that could double our power capacity. But there are many, many challenges that we need to tackle, and it's important that while we're going through the energy transition, we don't forget the other sustainable development goals. So we must consider the low-income population and to tackle poverty and focus on education as well. And when we go on sectoral level, well, in transport, yesterday we have a problem here with the U-Bahn was not working at the end of the day, but I'm sure everyone could reach home and find a bus and then another train. There's amazing network, transport public network here, but in most cities in Brazil and other developing countries, we'll still need to focus on that. And that it's an investment, it's good for decarbonization, but it also gives a lot of benefits for the population and for security. And of course, we can have electric buses, and it's great for air pollution as well, and to invest more in rail for cargo transportation. And, well, residential sector, very different here from the European Union. It's a very hot country, and we have a cooling demand increasing very hard, very fast, and we must have technology and innovation so the demand won't grow as much as it's going, but the demand will grow, and it's a challenge to meet this growing demand while we're decarbonizing the sector.
Okay, after this round, I would like to open a little bit to the public audience as well. So if you have any questions, start thinking about it now. And I don't know whether there's any immediate questions already. Okay, if there are no questions from the audience, then we will continue here. So what would you say? I mean, if you would have to give guidance to the policymakers, I mean, I think we need really, I mean, we need action at all levels. I mean, we have heard that here, but maybe starting again with you, what would you say? I mean, when you would, when you would do drafting a recommendation for the policymakers, what would you prioritize? I mean, beyond the work you're doing.
It's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I said where I see the problem. Training is the problem. And I mean, if you see I mean, if you went to the exhibition and if you went to the last exhibition 3 years ago, you will face a major difference. I mean, there was also one end of last week, but the real last one was three years ago. And so the German or the European solar market was quite down that time. Now, you see, the halls are full, a lot of participants. But still in Germany, there's no education. Well, there is an education on the university level in the field of renewable energies. But we do not have a proper training program for electricians on solar. I mean, there are always initiatives in Germany, from Germany, also in Africa, to come up with a 3-year solar installer program. But what do you do when you go and participate in, for instance, Ghana, where we also work, in a 3-year program. And there's a handful of companies you could work with. So, I mean, my recommendation would be speak with, start with stakeholder workshops. Do not only speak with the people in your area, from the government side or all the public institutions, but get all on the table and find the right way for training in your country.
I think this point is very good. We started in Jordan now an academy approach so that we use different pre-qualified skills, and then we do shorter term courses. And I think the idea is also to interlink it with internship in companies. So it's very practical.
That's what I forgot, because if you see in Germany, so the Mittelstand, so the small medium enterprises, they are really driving the market, and they know what it means to train an apprentice. And so I think to get those medium-sized companies in the program, and I remember there was a conference 3 years ago in Berlin, so where all the North African countries presented their ideas, and there were also a chamber involved from, I don't know if it was Jordan or, I don't know, but I think that's the point. Get those guys on the table and don't think, they have a lot of sun, so they need training. But sun is only 50% of everything.
But I would also say that we also have a question of society, that we really see that craft workers, handmade work, is worth to work at, to be employed, because everybody's studying. The last 20 years, everybody runs the gymnasium, the A-level exams, everyone is passing and going to be an engineer, and then we are missing this really hardworking people, and we need to pay them appropriately. I know this is a big issue in Germany, but it's all over the world that we think that only studied engineers are good enough to work for companies, but we need this normal person being being happy and on a long-term perspective on site, working outside as an electrician.
Definitely.
If I could just add to that briefly, I think sometimes we're referring a little bit more to these Eurocentric settings. And so I think when we talk about capacity building, it's really important to look at the community level in other contexts as well. And so I completely agree that the technical expertise is needed, but we also need the contextual understanding, the multidisciplinary approach that I think a policy standpoint needs to embody. And it really is imperative that all these different stakeholders that we very often wipe off the table, we can see that they're there and we clearly ignore them. We need to change the way in which we approach that. And I feel this is really coming from a bottom-up and top-down approach. And so I would say, yes, the technical expertise is necessary, but so is the emotional understanding, so is the cultural understanding. The way we operate in these countries, in these contexts, is of a massive spectrum and variety, and it's very, very context-specific. And so I feel there isn't a one-size-fits-all in terms of what policy changes we need or what educational approaches we need to take. I think we really need to be asking the communities that we're working in, like, what do you need, you know? And I think it's going to be very different in South Africa than it is in Germany or than it is in Tanzania and Bangladesh, you know? And I think that we really need to hone down on what are the skills that are missing. And I think gathered here today, what are the skills that women can foster in these situations more that perhaps aren't acknowledged or under-acknowledged?
Yeah, I would like to come back to Marina, and I think it was amazing yesterday evening how many skilled Ukrainians at the moment are also on the German or in European on exile. So that was one thing which really impressed me. So I think we should really also take practical actions here in trying to connect your energy women also with the needed workforce, at least for the time being, and the skills you can get here, you can maybe also bring back in building up your country again.
Yes, definitely, Helen. I totally agree, and I appreciate already those people who've been contacting me and also saying that in their companies they have job opportunities for women, and for sure we've been inspired here by the exhibition, by communication, because we see the future technologies, and irrespective of war, for example, just before the war, we were developing a draft law on introduction of energy storages in Ukraine. So I believe that it is inevitable in Ukraine that we will have energy storages, because either it's for balancing the system, because what we were just talking before is that yes, we have lots of renewable capacities, and including in Ukraine we have up to 10 gigawatt of renewables, but like grids are not ready for that. And if we're talking about 100 renewables, we have to be ready even more for that. So for this reason, I was like contacting all the storage companies, because we have to get ready. We have to understand what is reality, but we have to get ready for the future. And we have to understand how we will balance the system, because exactly what our lesson from the war is that we have to be flexible. We have to be able to react immediately. Because, for example, yesterday we were thinking about new capacities, about grids, and already now we have drop in consumption, drop in production, and our renewable power plants, they get orders from the TSO on stopping the operation. Because, and all those, especially in peak solar hours. And in this case, like storages, they would be helpful. But at the same time, for example, in the regions or districts where people have blackout or they have cut off of electricity, those houses which are independent, having these roof solar plants on their roofs in their houses, so people from neighborhoods, they can come there and get charged their phones or anything like this. And militaries are also thinking now about that, and even about some chargeable like solar charger. So we have to be flexible. We have to think not even one step in advance, 10 steps in advance. And for example, again, we were talking about food security, and the fact that Ukrainian like diesel and like oil deposits or like our refineries, they were bombed. It means that we get really deficiency in fuel. And fuel is especially important for us now because it's a sowing season. And as you may know, like Ukraine is one of the biggest exporter of wheat and sunflower oil. And what we see nowadays is that it really imposes risk over food security. And for sure, if we are talking about Europe, it's more about prices. But if we are talking about East Africa, Middle East Africa, or even Asia, they are one of the biggest importers of wheat and grain. So all of us, we have to be ready. We have to understand that, or somehow build our energy sector, or rebuild, so that we can adjust immediately to anything what happens. We have to be make sure we are not dependent on one supplier of fuel, irrespective of what we are talking about. Either it's, I don't know, gas. And we thought as well that it's impossible to get rid of like Russian gas, but starting from 2015, we are not importing it anymore. And because it was, we couldn't expect this war, we didn't believe it would happen. And it was a coincidence that we had just one day before, we had a trial, and we have desynchronized our energy system from Belarus, from Russia, and we worked in parallel with European energy system. And it was just a trial, but thanks to this coincidence, we were ready for that. And now we are a member of the NCE group, and we are already synchronized with Europe. So sometimes something happens which is not very luckily, but it makes us react even faster and make some important decisions which would affect the sector all in all. So all these aspects are really, really important. So this is really, I encourage you to learn from our lesson and to think about your countries, whether you are dependent and on what exactly you are dependent. And if one day, like, this is either supply of nuclear fuel, again, nuclear fuel, we are not importing it anymore. Or like diesel, we also are dependent on Russia and Belarus. And thanks to negotiations with European countries who are now supplying, like Poland is doing extremely efforts in order to supply us diesel and more, because because all the countries understand that war in Ukraine will affect also like food security. So I just encourage you to think about all kinds of energy sectors, gas, electricity, everything, and how we can be independent, how we can react and be resilient again.
Before I give the word to Patricia, this is your last chance at the audience, so think about the question. Patricia has a chance, and then it's your chance again. So, Patricia, I think this comes to the question also of centralized versus decentralized approaches. What is the better system? I mean, in Germany we have 2 million energy producers, which is a big challenge for our grid operators, but in a way I would also say it makes us more resistant against against one dependency. And when it comes to imports, I think I can say from the German perspective, we are definitely diversifying. I mean, this was a very strong lesson learned. We have heard never be dependent on one supplier as strong as we are at the moment still. So please, Patricia.
Yes, maybe we don't have to choose. Both are important and both are already happening. So we are having more and more distributed energy generation and solar PV panels, and it's already economically feasible, and it's growing very fast, and this is great. In an energy planning perspective, the energy planner also have to understand how do we make the grid secure. So we have to understand about flexibility, and we have huge hydropower reservoirs that also works as batteries. That's very good, but not enough. So also batteries, and adds a lot of complexity for the grid operator. And also digitalization, we have new business models and new technologies coming. But that's a trend, and we as regulators have to update and modernize our energy system and be ready to adapt for it and to have the most of the distributed energy generation, but make sure of energy security. That's the first thing.
So again, a question to the audience. Anyone? I see some hands raising. Very good. Please.
Now, I don't know who would be answering this question, but how urgent is community engagement? I think Ariel addressed the matter of community engagement, community and cooperative engagement. How urgent is it, and which are the gaps that we have to close in order to achieve this engagement?
I think this is a question I would like to give at least to two of our speakers, maybe starting with Ariel, but I think also Marina, I would like to say, maybe also get your answer for the future. Do you want to have more centralized or decentralized? What is happening now with the mayors? Is it getting in Ukraine also now in this situation more a centralized approach? But starting with Ariel.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So I think I can speak from the humanitarian side of these activities. Community engagement is at the crux of everything. And I feel the reason so much of the humanitarian response to date has been less effective than it could be is because the community is not involved at the capacity that they should be. And I feel that the community engagement is very often adjunct to the policy being undertaken or the activities that are taken, and that the community should be engaged from the initial planning phase of any undertaking. And I think that this is very, very important, especially in discussing the involvement of women as well, because we see that when women are involved in project planning from the beginning, the outcomes of the project tend to be much more successful. And I think that it's also because we're representing over half of the population that then these projects are serving, right? So why is there not a seat at the table? And I think that on a very basic level, there's a savior complex often that exists that does not acknowledge the autonomy and the resilience of the communities that we're working with. So focusing really on meaningful engagement from the preliminary phase of any project, and focusing on co-creation and collaboration is the essence of successful implementation.
Okay, community engagement in Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you. I will try to be precise. I think that it is really important to engage community, and we were discussing about the opportunity to have energy clusters in Ukraine, so to have community engaged, and I think only when they are engaged, when they are understand like all the chain of supply or something like this, they can be really responsible for that, and they do care in this case. Otherwise, when this is totally like only on the central level, someone is decided, so they don't care, they only care about prices, and it's very easy to rule and govern with such people. So I mean, like, it's very easy before, for example, elections, to manipulate with energy prices and to say that renewable energy is super expensive or something like this. And when people are educated, when they understand, when they see in practice how this works with renewable energy, so or with any other energy, if they choose it to be so. This is really important, and I'm always supporting the idea of engaging everyone, and irrespective of community. And just yesterday, I told you about the initiatives that we had within Women Energy Club. We have our annual conferences, and we had a separate panel where we asked, for example, kids how they see the issue, and because we are mainly dealing with gender issues, so we have asked kids whether, and we want to mentor them, to educate, to show that basically energy sector is not only like male sector, it's up to you to choose. And we asked kids whether they have this perception, whether it's female or male sector, and whether they face any kind of problems in all levels. Like, so we had even a kid of 7-year-old boy, or like we had people from like 17-year-old ladies, or like from, they were studying the universities, and it's important. But what also is really interesting for me, we were speaking about mentoring, about educational programs, but we were just discussing yesterday with colleagues this exhibition. If you go all over, I had perceptions that renewable sector is the one where women are prevailing, at least in comparison to conventional energy, to gas sector. And if you go now to all those pavilions, you would see at least 80% men. Like women, yes, there are women there, and even more. We were discussing with colleagues that once you go to some booth and you see very well-dressed ladies there, very good-looking, you address them, you ask them, and they say, sorry, I will ask my manager, I'm just a representative, I will ask my manager or technician to give you more information. How is that? So is this a choice of, we have to admit, actually, sometimes this is a choice of a woman who doesn't feel like going into details, or just doesn't feel ambitious enough to go there, because, or so either it's mentoring, and this is actually our goal, to show that you can do that. You are very welcome wherever you want to go, and you can do it. And it's not a matter of gender. It's not a matter of confrontation between men or women. We are not trying to show that we are better than men. We're just different, and together we can cooperate, and we can give this different angle on the same issue, and we all will win.
Yes, I can only agree. There was another question in the audience. Yes.
So I think I could find a good transit for Maria's, what you said is a choice of women. Before that, I would like to add a comment, and then to my question. Earlier, one of our panelists are saying that we lack skills, right? We don't have proper trainings. I'm working for Siemens, and I see that most of the wind energy companies do have apprenticeships. And honestly talking, recently we would like to have virtual call with female technicians working for offshore, means, you know, going into the turbine, which is middle of the sea, and work as technicians. We barely found 2. That's not a walking in a park. That took us 1 month to find 2 female technicians. And all companies do have apprenticeships, which offers for females. So to add, we asked one of our managing director, what is the quota for women? They said, you have, but you haven't joined. So my question to the panelists is, what do you think, when is the right time for women to choose their career, and how to do it? Because maybe in 10 years, we will be in senior management positions, but our juniors or who are coming out of schools or universities should know that earlier. So they take apprenticeship or plan for this solar or wind future earlier, right? If not, that will be too late. So what do you think? What is the right time and how could we approach that? Thank you so much.
Yes, who wants to start? Do you like to start?
Yeah, I have a very easy answer. I hope an easy answer. Just go your own way. Decide what you want for yourself, how you want to take the balance of family and the job. What is your next goal? And then always go one step ahead. Take responsibility for yourself and for the tasks you have on the table. And then just go ahead. Don't see a ceiling and don't see men being more competitive than you are. It's a question of yourself and how you see that. And every time you decide to reach a goal, just go for it. And it's not easy, but it's not even easier for a man, because if you're talking about the 80% guys outside, there are 80% guys fighting against each other. We are only the 20% of it. So that's something we sometimes try. Sometimes I think we are a bit of men are, it's a reason because of the man. It is in the structure and everything, but it's also the difference we make. And I just want to encourage everybody to make an own decision for your own life on every single stage of you are. Every day can change, but take your own goals, your own decision, your own balance, and then go for it.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
I studied civil engineering, and we were 200 students, and I'm not quite sure if we were 20 or 30 female students. And I mean, I always say I never built a house. I ended up in training, management, and the renewable sector. But however, the renewable sector or the solar sector, there's not only the guys or the persons who install system. So there's a complete value chain. There's a lot of administration, marketing, management. And this is, I mean, we should not, I think, so we should not try replacements. So we should find the places where we want to be. And I think it's not because of education or background that there were only 30 female students. It's just interest. So, and if you see, so we always try to get women to our courses. I don't know the exact figure, but I think it's not more than 10%. And in South Africa, every August we have Women's Month. And so we always run campaigns for women to come to the courses. We find sponsors. And so we were never successful, so we could not find them. But last year, we made a campaign for the men to bring a woman to the course. And this worked. So we had a lot of girls, a lot of women, and even girls who wanted to go in the installation. So.
Excellent. I see, Patricia, you want to add?
Yes. What I'd like to add is don't give up. Maybe many times for women, it will be harder than for men and for other people. And we have many challenges, and when you become a mother, there are other challenges. But don't give up. If you know what you want to do, just go for it. Maybe you'll need more patience that you wanted to have, but don't give up and ask for help. We cannot do everything by ourselves. So find people you trust to support you and keep going, have a purpose, and you'll get there. Maybe not today, probably tomorrow, in a year, but don't give up and keep going.
Yes, I would also like to add something on that, if I may. I think the same. I mean, and I think I was also confronted in the beginning, like, you have to make a choice. Do you want family or work or something? And I was always confronted, you cannot have all or something. And I think, yes, you can have all and you should have all. And this war in Ukraine is not a women's war. I think that's very important. And I think women can achieve incredibly a lot. We have so many urgent issues here to be addressed. Women can be investment bankers, top investment bankers. They can fund billions immense large programs in the renewable sector. And women can do all technical installation men can do. I'm sorry, when I see the practicality in my family, looking at boys and girls, sometimes I think, why are not the girls better engineers? And I think in the emergent issues as well, I think women can everything. And you can probably find a girl in a refugee camp which can become a minister or a politician. I mean, there's no sky limit. And I think that's something maybe we have to bring home, everybody to his own constituency, and but I don't want to have this as a closing word. So again, one last round for questions here.
Can I just add one word there? Thank you. Yeah, I think also I just wanted to add that I think there's something to be said for the support mechanisms that we provide for each other as women in these contexts. And if we're talking about emerging issues, displacement contexts, emerging economies and things like this, we also need to consider the positions and the gender dynamics that exist within those contexts and see how we, perhaps in our positions, can support and facilitate the involvement of women in a way that's also suitable and respectful to them and their cultural background. And so I think, just ultimately, what can we do to support each other, and how can we educate ourselves and support one another in facilitating others being involved in the sector in a way that feels appropriate and meaningful to them?
Yes, just one. You asked before what we wish from politics, and what I wish from politics is always to be really ambitious, because the economy and everybody will complain about what's decided, because you never make everything right for everybody. But being really ambitious from the goal you want to reach, we have climate change, we have to face that, and that costs, because it will cost at any stage. So we need to have politics that are free from economics. They need to be really ambitious in the goals we want to reach, and then we will adjust on that. Economics will find a way. And going back to the women's in that case, find solutions, bring your solutions on the table, and I think that will make the difference. Not question anybody else to help you, but bring your solutions on the table to get rid or to tackle and to find solutions to stop the climate change.
I will also add briefly, if I may. So I fully agree with your approach and choose your own way. So take responsibility for what you are doing and for what you are not doing, and stop accusing everyone around that you couldn't make it just because you're not, I don't know, you were not allowed or something like this. Really try, and pretend as if there are like no obstacles, right? So maybe by nature we are really less ambitious. We are all different, but mostly maybe women are less ambitious than men are. And even if we are applying for a job vacancy, and men, please, dear men, no offenses. Like, I'm grateful for your presence here. But like when, for example, a man would read a job description like engineer, okay, I'm fine, I'm engineer, I will apply. Woman would read engineer, okay, I'm engineer. Like there are some, but maybe I have to learn something else. Okay, they say I should be ambitious. Okay, I'm ambitious, but okay, maybe not ambitious enough. One week more, I will train. Okay, they say, I don't know, German B2. Okay, B2 I have, but maybe they will ask about C1. I will learn more. So, and only like for a month, a woman would think whether she is compliant or not. Maybe then she will apply. So this is reality. This is reality, and this is what we are facing. But really try, go for it, and I think that really passion is energy. And when you are passionate about what you are doing, you are basically producing energy, and like we are energizing each other, not only women energized. Like once you are passionate, it's getting viral. So do what you are passionate about.
No, I think so too. I think we are coming to an end here. There will be a short, I think, break afterwards, but I would also like to close this, that women can do it. And I think we have so many emergent things, and we don't have time to wait. There is no time to do another language course. You should start today. There is no time to do another extra qualification. Do it now, try. You will fail sometimes, but I think failure is also part of it. I mean, you have great women here on the podium today. You have them in the audience. If we would all connect, we could really be a big step forward. And we will continue this. And I hope I will see you all again. So thank you very much for this panel today. And I think we have a short break now. Thank you.